What is SUI? Now, SUI is a layer 1 blockchain, but that's not where the story starts. The story starts a few years ago when Facebook was developing its own blockchain called Libra. Now, Libra died out, and that's no longer a thing, and then the people developing Libra within Facebook split up into two different companies, Aptos and Sui. Now, there are some differences between Aptos and Sui, and we're not going to get into that in this video, but the team behind Sui is Mistin Labs. Now, there's this really good podcast and YouTube channel called Token Terminal. They dive into a lot of different projects, and they had an interview with the co-founder of Sui. Now, this interview got me to really dive into Sui and find out what it's about and use it, and I got hooked. So that's what got me to become an investor. Check it out. I'll leave a link to them in the description. Now, the co-founder Adeniyi really explains all the aspects of why Sui is amazing, and I'm just going to do a worse version of explaining everything here in this video. So thanks for hanging out. Alright, so digging into Sui features. Now, Sui plans on building for the future of mass adoption. They're not planning to solve problems from yesterday, not for problems today. They're solving for problems in the future, and that's what I really like about that. And to do that, they have taken some of the best aspects from other blockchains and have brought it into Sui. Now, that's not to say that they are just copying other projects. They're just making things easier and more useful for the end user. You can kind of think of Netflix being its own streaming service, creating its own content, and then other people creating their own streaming service and creating their own content. People do something similar but put their own spin on it, making it unique and attractive to certain users. So here's some of Sui's key features. zkLogin. Now, this is just a way for you to use your crypto wallet with a social media account. So you can tie your Google account to your crypto wallet. This makes creating a wallet incredibly easy. It just happens in a few clicks, and it's already secured by Google. As long as you're doing things securely and accessing certain things with your Google account safely, then your crypto is safe. Now, there are safer ways to hold your crypto, of course, but that's incredibly risky. If we're looking for mass adoption and making it very easy for people to get into crypto, then using services that people are already familiar with is very likely the way. So I like what they're doing there. Then we have parallel transactions. Imagine you're at a supermarket, you're checking out, you're scanning every item one by one. And that's kind of how a blockchain works. Every transaction is processed one at a time. You can't process multiple transactions at once. But with parallel transactions, you can process multiple things at once. So let's say you're at a supermarket again, and instead of scanning every item one by one, you just scan everything in the basket once. You scan the entire basket, you're done, and you're out. And that's kind of like how parallel transactions work. So instead of having to approve transactions, swap, stake, do all these different things, with parallel transactions, you can do everything in one click. So for example, I'm in this DeFi protocol bucket, and I have 50 USDC in my account, and I want to add to a liquidity pool. That would involve me trading my USDC for some of the other coin and adding that, but that can all happen in one easy transaction. So I'm going to add my USDC to this pool, hit add liquidity, the pop-up appears, it's showing that I have a bunch of transactions that are going to happen in the background, and I just hit approve, and in just a moment, the liquidity is added. That's it. So that's what parallel transactions do. It simplifies the entire process of DeFi and other things, potentially gaming, and we'll find out in the near future what else you can do with these parallel transactions. It's nice. It simplifies everything. It's very quick, and I like it. I said I rambled too much. Unlimited TPS, that is transactions per second, and at the moment you can see the scale here that Sui has 297,000 TPS, significantly higher than its competitors. Now, there isn't really a limit on the TPS on how fast transactions can happen because it's all machine based. So if you want more transactions per second, you just have to spin up more machines to help process those transactions on the SUI network. Now, this was all covered by the co-founder in the Token Terminal podcast that I mentioned. And that's what SUI means when they are infinitely scalable. They can do as many transactions per second as necessary. At the moment, that's very fast, and they don't need to make it any faster just because the demand isn't there yet. Zooming in here, we can take a look at the number of transactions per epoch and the average cost of a SUI transaction. So you can see that transactions went up, but the cost stayed stable. If we saw this happen on Ethereum, the cost for transactions would be very high and the network wouldn't be usable. So how does SUI maintain these low predictable fees? And that's through their validators. Validators have to say how much they are going to charge for their services, and they all bid to process those transactions on the network. If they bid too low, then they're not making any money. They're losing money because their cost to provide the validators to the network is too high. And if they bid too high, then other validators get picked. So using the gig economy model for validators, SUI makes it possible to have these low and predictable fees. Now, over time, according to the podcast, I'm just going to keep referencing it because it was very ideal and enthusiastic and really got me to dive into things, that transactions over time are just going to get cheaper as the infrastructure for the network gets better. As more validators go online, as there's more competition, the price should come down if the demand is there. Then we have zkSend. zkSend allows you to send SUI to anybody using a link. So you could email it to them, you can text them, and this just makes it easier for people you may know that you recommend to get involved with SUI so they have funds to participate in the ecosystem. It's pretty clever, it's pretty easy to use, and you can see that they launched this on November 2nd. And coincidentally, a few weeks later, Coinbase on December 6th launched a very similar product, allowing you to send funds to anybody with a link. So this is a product that's starting to get used and be more common in the crypto space, where you can send funds with a link. Now, with zkSend, you can send SUI to a friend, and in the event that they don't claim those funds, you can reclaim them at any time. As long as they haven't claimed it yet, you can reclaim your funds. So it makes it really easy to provide a gift, and you tell your friends like, hey, this is Christmas, I'm giving you this gift. If you don't claim it in a month, it disappears. And that's really because it's just going back into your wallet. And this is how you can get credit for giving your friends crypto, while at the same time, if they don't do it, you still get that credit and you get your crypto back. Additionally, there's also sponsored transactions, so you can make a decentralized application completely gasless by the developer paying for all the gas fees in advance. And this is something we've been seeing on something like Immutable X, another blockchain, where they are getting more games onto their network, and that's what the future of gaming needs. It needs gasless transactions. So SUI is doing this as well, and you can expect a lot more games to start appearing in the SUI network. And that's actually in the works. South Korean mobile developer NHN is building crypto games on SUI. And when it comes to games of chance, there's also on-chain randomness. So there is a feature called the elliptic curve verifiable random function. That's just some technical talk just to make sure everything that is supposed to be random is actually random and it is provable on-chain. SUI also makes it possible for you to store data on the network. A lot of that is still kind of in the works, and there is a big announcement coming in February that's going to explain everything in better detail. So we're not going to really jump into it too much here. And SUI is more secure than other blockchains because it is built on Move. Now, each blockchain uses its own programming language. Ethereum uses Solidity. Things that are similar to Ethereum that do very similar things are also built on Solidity. Solana is built on Rust, and SUI uses Move. Now, the difference between these programming languages comes down to security, as I've heard it. Maybe I'm being manipulated by people talking about Sui because I'm not a developer and I can't really confirm these things. When it comes to security, Ethereum and Solidity is right here, Solana is right here, and then blockchains that use Move, that's Aptos and Sui, are up here. Move is just a more secure programming language, and potentially we're going to see a lot less hacks than we do on EVM-based chains. Now, there have been billions of dollars lost in DeFi hacks, and if we don't see any of that on Sui, a lot of money from those higher risk blockchains could potentially start moving over to the Sui blockchain. Alright, so that's a lot of information, and that's a lot of pretty unique features that Sui is building to potentially get mass adoption, but that doesn't mean people are going to start using Sui. They need applications there. So how does Sui plan to grow their ecosystem? And to do that, they have announced a Sui ecosystem fund of 117 million Sui tokens. At the time that they posted this in October, that was worth about $51 million. As we're talking about this today, if all those tokens are still available, it's worth around $85 million, so that's becoming more valuable. Because the best way to incentivize people to start building and using your network is money. So they are incentivizing developers to come build there, and then those developers need users so they can get that grant money, so then they have to incentivize users to participate and use their decentralized applications. So that's a pretty common strategy for these blockchains to grow, to get their ecosystem going, and that's why I'm most excited about the decentralized applications that are building on Sui because of the incentives. Now, as for the Sui Coin, I do have some not so great thoughts on that. I know this isn't a sponsored video, so it's going to be a very unbiased opinion. And that's because of things like the transaction fees. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. So let's just jump into what can you do with the Sui Coin. And jumping into the Sui documentation here, the native asset on Sui is called SUI. The token uses the capitalized version of Sui to distinguish the Sui token from the network. Now, the total supply is 10 billion Sui tokens. We're going to go into the unlock schedule in a moment, and the key purposes for it is that you can participate in the proof of stake mechanism, which means you can stake the coin and earn rewards. Now, if you are going to stake your Sui, you can do that in the official Sui wallet. I am just using this as a test wallet. I have a 1 Sui staked, so you don't really need that much. And the interest at the moment is 3.73%. So that isn't a lot, and that's great. That's great because you're not going to have a lot of inflation from staking rewards. And if you wanted to participate in DeFi, take on a little more risk, maybe get exposure to a potential airdrop, there's things like Scallop, where you'd be able to lend out your Sui and earn 22%, and there's other DeFi products as well. There's Cetus, Navi, Abex, Hadel, Bucket Protocol, and more. So if you want to learn more about the Sui ecosystem, just Google it, Sui ecosystem. And then you go to sui.directory, and you can see all the projects building in Sui. But my method is going through Twitter to see what has a lot of followers, what has backing, what is trending when it comes to a certain ecosystem. Now, I only mentioned those decentralized applications because you can potentially earn more than just staking it. Now, as for what else you can do with the coin, is it's needed to pay for gas fees on the network, and that's really a thing, and you can participate in governance. Those are the common things you can do with a coin for a specific blockchain, and I think the real potential when it comes to Sui is in the decentralized applications. But now, let's talk about the tokenomics. The total supply of Sui is capped at 10 billion tokens. Now, once all the coins are circulating, then Sui can kind of become deflationary, because if you want to store data to the network, you have to lock your Sui tokens to the network. Now, that can still be claimable, but if a lot of people are using data and that Sui gets locked up, then all the other SUI that is still available becomes more valuable. So it can technically become deflationary in the future, but right now it is incredibly inflationary. So at the moment, the circulating supply is 1 billion tokens, with the total supply being 10 billion. So 10% of all coins are currently circulating. As more coins start entering the circulating supply, then you could potentially become diluted. So that's the risk if you are going to invest in SUI. You would experience a lot of sell pressure once more tokens start entering the ecosystem. So right now, 1 billion tokens, and that is at the end of December here. And by July the 4th, a lot of tokens are going to be entering the ecosystem. About 2.4 billion will be the total circulating supply from 1 billion now. So that's a 140% increase in the circulating supply. Now, that's not to say the token is just going to get dumped immediately, but there is dilution there. Just because when you are getting involved in a token when it's this early, you do take on a lot of that risk. Now, do I see potential in the ecosystem long term? Yes. Do I see a lot of risk at the moment? Also, yes. So that's where you have to use your experience and knowledge as an investor to decide when investing is right for you or looking for other opportunities. So right now, most of the coins being unlocked are for stake subsidies, community reserve, and the community access program. And then in July, that's when it starts unlocking for early contributors, the Mistin Labs treasury, the people that invested in the series A and B, and then, a lot of inflation up until July 2026, where then it starts to flatten out a lot more. So keep that in mind if you are investing. Maybe you don't see a lot of potential now, but in 2026, you see the ecosystem growing, the inflation isn't really there anymore, and then there could be a lot of potential in this zone. But that's what we do as investors. We decide on how much risk we want to take. And that brings us to the Dan opinion. That's me, Dan. Thanks for sticking around this long. If you like the content, feel free to hit the like button, leave a thumbs up in the comments or something. Yeah, give me a little constructive feedback. Now, I like SUI. I like using it. It's fast. It's convenient with parallel transactions. You can use your email address to link your wallet. And I really do think that they are building for the future of mass adoption. But SUI, of course, is in a very competitive space. There are a lot of other blockchains doing similar things, and that's where you take on that risk. Like, is SUI going to be the top dog? Who knows? It does, and they don't necessarily have to be the number one blockchain. They just have to continue growing. So these are just things I'm watching. I'm watching user adoption. I'm watching the TVL growing, and I like what I see, but it doesn't matter. Like, a meme coin could pump way harder and do much better, you know? And when it comes to the Sui Coin in the long term, as, transactions get sponsored, as network fees go down with the building up for the network, the coin potentially could have less of a use case. People might not necessarily need it. So, got to figure that out. I know it is going for fast, cheap, and convenient, but maybe even at a high scale, that could still bring a lot of value to the coin. So time will tell if they will do well or not. Now, I am taking that risk by investing, and I'm investing in a lot of other things. I like parallel transactions, and SUI isn't the only one doing that. If you want to learn more, follow me on Twitter. Yeah, I will post more, and I hope this video was helpful. If you want to learn more about the SUI ecosystem or very specific applications that I'm using, let me know in the comments. And with that, I hope you got your full value for today.